wanted to read a novel about the northeast of England surfing scene, life and death, talking crows, and Raymond Chandler. Well, you can't, because I'm terse. But I've done a performance poem about it. This is called The First Novel That I Never Wrote. The first novel that I never wrote concerned two men, a crow, and a boat. The crow could talk, there was a classic car, and an oblique reference to the Vietnam War. The anti-hero Zwicky was a lot like me, with a bit of Franz Kafka and some references from cult TV. And the hero, O'Neill, was a Shakespearean fool, a philosopher surfer, incredibly cool. From his Andy Warhol hair to his feet always bare, his faded jeans, pop art t-shirt, and stricken air of remembered hurt. He came from California to Amble in '73 and burned his passport, a latter-day Don Quixote. He'd heard of legendary waves brought by North Sea storms and realised too late he'd been misinformed. So he settled in a house next to Ken's auto parts shop. And I also invented this mysterious cop who looked like a Madonna but was clearly FBI, or maybe he was an angel. You see, Zwicky tried suicide, but O'Neill's surfboat was anchored on the line that separates the mortal from the truly divine. And this line stretches across Almouth Bay. There were lots of local things I wanted to say. O'Neill saved Zwicky without hesitation or regret and then rolled him the world's most aesthetic cigarette. And this cigarette rolling thing was a device of mine to punctuate their conversations that were cinematic and sublime. That night, Zwicky met this Philip Marlowe guy who asked him how come he tried and failed to die. Said he'd set the balance of heaven awry, and the only way to get it straight was to find another lost soul and change his fate. So they went to London, where all lost souls numb their pain, but Zwicky punched a mean guy on an underground train, and although that guy had it coming, they still had to flee, and jumped on a coach that was headed to a monastery, to a kind of retreat. That's where they met the crow, who went by the name of Edgar Allan Poe. He was surfing air currents, but his movements didn't flow. He had a great takeoff, but no kind of bottom turn. O'Neill said he'd teach him if he had the wit to learn. So three together off they went. And that's where I lost them, hitchhiking in a snowstorm in Kent. I'd planned a stately home/skunk farm. That was my William Burroughs pastiche, but with feminine charm. They were going to go to Sussex, where they'd meet a UFO. There were so many places for this plot to go. You're thinking Neil Gaiman did this in '93. Well, that whole mythologizing road trip thing, that was me. And my talking crow predates Murakami's talking cat. Just wanted you all to be aware of that fact. I was going to kill them in a storm at sea, but they visited my dreams and they said to me they weren't going to die that paltry way. So I decided to make their whole project fail. They'd never find a lost soul and all that entailed. O'Neill would sacrifice himself for his friend, walk out into nowhere. That would be the end. Zwicky never knowing if his companion had been real, holding an empty wetsuit with the logo O'Neill. Standing looking seawards, wrapped in a fabulous coat. Last surviving anti-hero, the first novel that I never wrote.